I've got 5 reasons why you should be excited for the Buffalo Bills rushing offense in 2025 coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, folks, welcome in. We spent some time recently talking about the passing offense and the target distribution, and one of the complicating factors in coming up with all the targets that you'd like to have for all these pass catchers that the Bills have in this offense is that the Bills run the ball. They run the ball a lot. They're not a high-volume passing offense. They're a high-volume rushing offense. And the Bills' rushing offense was really good last year. And my objective today is to share with you 5 reasons why you should be excited about this rushing offense in 2025. And we will get into a conversation about complementary football, some of the key players and pieces of the rushing offense, and why there's a lot of incentives baked into their success this year. But I do want to start the conversation with my number one talking point, and that is that the Bills' rushing offense was really good last year. And they ran the ball a lot. The Bills, in terms of percentage of offensive plays that were runs, fifth highest last year in percentage of offensive plays that were runs. They finished 9th in total rushing yards per game, number 2 in EPA per run, which is the most meaningful measurement of how good a rushing offense is expected points added per run. The Bills are number 2 in the NFL. They had the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL with 32. No other team had more than 30. I think Detroit had 29. Maybe Baltimore had 29. And then you had other teams that were like in the mid-20s. The Bills had a commanding lead for most rushing touchdowns last season. I love this metric. The Bills were number 8 in missed tackles forced per attempt. You want to have ball carriers that can make people miss. The Bills certainly have that in James Cook and Ray Davis and Josh Allen, really as the 3 leading ball carriers for this team. Ray Davis is terrific, number 4 in the league last year in missed tackles forced per attempt. The Bills were number 7 in stuff percentage, only 2% away from leading the league in lowest stuff percentage. You're probably wondering, well, what the heck's stuff? A stuff is any run that does not result in a first down or touchdown, less than 4 yards on first down, or less than 3 yards on any down. 7th lowest stuff rate in the NFL. Again, a stuff is any run that does not result in a first down or touchdown, less than 4 yards on first down, or less than 3 yards on any other down. And lastly, in terms of metrics that I will give you to tell you how good the rushing offense was last year, is that the Bills were 4th best in the league in success rate on run plays. You might be asking yourself, well, what defines a successful run? A successful run is one that gains at least 40% of the yards needed to move the chains on first down, 60% on second down, and 100% on third or fourth down. The Bills are really good at running the ball last year. So you should be excited about this Bills rushing offense because of the foundation that they laid last year as an upper echelon rushing offense. Every bit of a top 5 rushing offense this Buffalo Bills team had last year. That's number one. it was really good last year. Number two is the continuity. So you have a lot of really good success last year, and pretty much all of it is back this year. The entire offensive coaching staff is back. The entire running back room is back. Your top 9 offensive linemen from last year is back. And that's a big deal because now you can build and evolve as opposed to laying a foundation. Year 1 of Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. It's not the case anymore. You're building as opposed to laying a foundation. And in this continuity conversation, as it pertains to the Bills' rushing offense, I think it's a big deal that the middle 3 on the offensive line is part of that continuity. Where last year, that was flipped upside down. Year over year, 23 to 24, you're working in a new center, and you're working in a new left guard, and you're working in a new utility blocker, right? Mitch Morse cut. Connor McGovern left guard to center, his first year playing center in the NFL. David Edwards from utility blocker to starting left guard, and Alec Anderson to utility blocker, right? A 20% of the snaps role for this Bills offense. That's not changing year over year. But especially for the middle 3, where you look at a guy like Osiris Torrance entering his 3rd year as a starter, his first 2 years started with a different center. Mitch Morse is a rookie, Connor McGovern in year 2. The same exact thing can be applied to the left side with Deion Dawkins. He's played next to a different left guard, I think, every year of his career. He's finally going to get a chance to have year-over-year consistency with the guy next to him. And you know that offensive line is really about 5 guys working together, especially, well, I would say, I was going to say especially in the run game, but it's very, very relevant to the pass game too, where point being is that how you block certain plays against certain looks matters. And the more that you've done it together, the more you know what problems the defensive alignment gives you and what you're supposed to do, and that becomes more second nature. And that ties into the offensive line, but then it ties into the running backs and them playing off of the blocks, right? That's what it really comes down to. How is your offensive lineman going to take on certain blocks so that way you know where the leverage is going to be and where the space is going to be? That continuity, building off of a great 2024 season, is my leading reasons why you should be excited about the Bills rushing offense in 2025. All right, coming up on the other side of it, we're going to get deeper into this conversation and talk about some of the big incentives that are baked into the success of the Bills rushing offense in 2025, in addition to where there's opportunities for growth. So we'll do that here in just a moment. Be sure to stick with me. The NBA Finals are here, and I'm excited for it. The the NHL Stanley Cup Finals are here as well. And these are huge moments in sports, and they are exciting, and they're even more exciting when you get on over to FanDuel. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, the playoffs on both sides, hockey and basketball, have been really fun to watch, but getting in on the player props has made watching these games even more exciting, especially as somebody who really doesn't care who wins the games. I care about my prop bets hitting, and so I'm watching the Thunder, and I'm watching SGA and rooting for him to hit the over on points, which I pretty much betted on every single game to this point, or watching the Stanley Cup Finals and the playoffs to this point, Connor McDavid or Sam Reiner getting in on the over for them in their projected points in a particular game. And then baseball's going on. That's really fun where, I've been building parlays of different players that I think are going to get a hit that night or a certain amount of total bases that night. And so it's making these sports really fun to follow and watch with a little action over at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. If you head to FanDuel.com, you can place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back. We spent the first segment really talking about the success that the Bills had last year and how that continuity can lead to even more success this year running the football. I want to talk about some rooms for growth right now, room for growth. And two things in particular really stand out to me as variables that are in place that will help this run game elevate. And I do elevate, excuse me. And I want to start with Jackson Hawes, the Bills draft pick out of Georgia Tech that specializes in blocking, right? That's the calling card with Jackson Hawes. And I know he's a tight end 3 and he's a rookie, but I also believe he's a ready-made NFL blocking tight end. And of course, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are the guys in this tight end room, but that tight end 3 spot is a relevant one for the Bills. Quentin Morris last year as a tight end 3 in a blocking role had 159 snaps blocking. Mac Hollins, a wide receiver, had 82 snaps last year as an inline blocker. That's notable. You feel like at a minimum in a run blocking capacity, Jackson Hawes picks up those snaps and represents a better blocking option than Quentin Morris or Mac Hollins as inline players. And I know that we like to think about running backs and offensive linemen as it relates to running the football. But the more I study the league, particularly in the zone rushing offense, which is a bit of the flavor of the league right now, you have to have these ancillary blockers that win on the edge, that can win in space. It's huge. You can't have backside defenders crashing down and ruining your zone runs. If you want to run wide zone, you need to be able to win the edge. That's tight ends. That's guys blocking in space. You want explosive runs? You better be able to connect with moving targets in space to spring runners. Jackson Hawes is going to be an asset for this team in that capacity. So I think while there's a lot of continuity, you ask yourself, well, how can it get better? You know, what's going to be different that's going to help it elevate? And I think the one thing that stands out as something that's different is the arrival of Jackson Hawes to take a meaningful amount of snaps that were previously filled by Quentin Morris and Mac Hollins and elevate the blocking component of what those players delivered to this football team. The other thing that I want to talk about in terms of where I really identify growth opportunity is Ray Davis in his second season. I feel like this is a little bit overlooked right now, where the story with the Buffalo Bills running backs is James Cook and the contract. And I understand that. That should be the lead story. But let's not forget about Ray Davis in his second season, where if you go to James Cook, year 1 to year 2, really good growth. Devin Singletary, year 1 to year 2, really good growth. Ray Davis is the next up in that lineage under Coach Skipper, who's been the Bills' running backs coach since Sean McDermott became the head coach. I thought Ray Davis had a good rookie season. He was the 8th running back drafted, excuse me, but he was 3rd in rushing yards. And let me give you some numbers here on Ray Davis's rookie season that really stand out to me. He was number 4 in the NFL in missed tackles forced per attempt. That's meaningful. He was also 3rd in highest percentage of carries into stacked boxes. Stacked boxes are 8 or more defenders in the box. So Ray Davis and a lot of the work that he got were short yardage, right, where you knew the Bills were going to run the ball. And in that closer role, late in games, right, the Bills are leading. They're trying to get out of a game. The defense knows that the Bills are running the ball, and so you get a lot of stacked boxes. Still fourth in the NFL in missed tackles forced per attempt. There's meat on the bone for Ray Davis to really take a step here. Some other metrics that stand out to me. He was number 4 in stuff percentage. That's not good. And his efficiency metrics were average to below average. I recently watched some Ray Davis film because I did a football 101 on the offensive run game in our Discord channel a couple weeks ago. And so I watched a lot of film to kind of get ready for that. And I actually went through a lot of film with people in Discord showing them different run plays. And a lot of them were Ray Davis runs. And what really stood out to me about Ray Davis is that I really liked his rookie season. Right? Like, he got one start against the Jets, over 150 yards from scrimmage. I thought he was a good complementary piece to James Cook. But one thing that you notice about watching Ray Davis as a rookie is that he kind of focused in when he got the football on finding the track and not necessarily doing the little things to help that track be bigger, right? I had a conversation with Jeremy White on WGR on our Wednesday morning. I do a Wednesday spot with WGR every single Wednesday. And we talked about Ray Davis, and Jeremy actually summed up what I was trying to say quite well. He said, looking for more artistry from Ray Davis than simply doing what the play calls for. Where you could tell he was kind of hyper-focused in on, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do on this play. Let me do that thing. When you're a ball carrier, that is important, right? You need to have a disciplined approach in how you run the football. But there is room for your creativity as a player, for your artistry as a player to creep in. And I think we'll see that happen more for Ray Davis in year 2, just like it did for James Cook, just like it did for Devin Singletary. Some of those natural instincts as opposed to, hey, it's wide zone or it's cutback zone. This is what I'm supposed to do. Let me do that. Right? I think there's more for Ray Davis to unlock in terms of his instincts of running the ball. And I think even lost in how he ran the football was that he was mostly successful and there was good production. But even like when you're watching him run cutback zone, and in order for that to really work, you have to press hard one way and then work back across the grain. Like, you could tell that the footwork piece of that was kind of lacking compared to, of course, James Cook, who was in his 3rd season doing that. So for Ray Davis, I feel like there is and are areas for his game to take a step. And from year 1 to year 2, I think we'll see that. Even Joe Brady talked about this when he was meeting with the media on Tuesday this week for OTAs, talked about how it's really beneficial for Ray Davis to now have a year under his belt to zoom out, to really hone in on the fundamentals of playing the position, to watch the tape and learn, right? I think you'll see a lot of application for what he's learned in this coming season. Because I think that's a slept-on component of this Bills rushing offense. Of course it's about James Cook. Of course it is. But Ray Davis still claimed a meaningful amount of touches. And I think there's a lot of room for those touches to be even more impactful. I'm excited to see it. All right, coming up next, I want to talk about some big incentives for the variables in place for the Bills rushing offense and another component, which is complementary football, and how I think the Bills are primed to be even better in that capacity, which should unlock more for the run game. We'll talk about all that here in just a moment. Be sure to stick with me. All right, let's keep discussing reasons why I think you should be excited for the Bills rushing offense in 2025. Next up, I want to get into some big incentives, massive incentives. There are players involved in this rushing offense that have a lot on the line. And we'll start with James Cook. We know what this guy's after. It's after a contract that pays him as much as Derrick Henry per season. Well, you want to get the Derrick Henry contract, you got to produce like Derrick Henry. All the motivation in the world. I don't think that James Cook's going to enter this season with the deal he's looking for. I think the resolution for this year is going to be play out the season, and then we'll talk about it after the year. Well, you want to talk about a showcase opportunity, not just for James Cook to convince the Bills that he's worth the money he's after, but to the league, right? Because someone's going to pay James Cook. He's going to get a new contract. Is it going to be Buffalo? Is it going to be another team? If he wants the money he's after, well, it comes with producing this year to a level that's going to make a team say, yeah, we'll pay you like Derrick Henry. So a lot riding for James Cook. And by extension, a lot riding for Ray Davis. Ray Davis is in line to be the Bills' lead running back in 2026 if James Cook is not brought back. What Ray Davis does this year is a huge data point for Buffalo in their considerations for James Cook's contract demands, but also if they don't pay James Cook, who the lead back is. Ray Davis has the opportunity to convince this team that it can be him. Big incentives for Ray Davis to really deliver in 2025. How about the entire middle of this offensive line? Connor McGovern and David Edwards, starting center, starting left guard, they are in contract years as well. Play your best ball, get your best contract, right? They are positioned to do that. Like, they are all players that have signed multiple NFL deals. McGovern has signed, he was a rookie and then hit free agency and signed with Buffalo. David Edwards was a rookie, hit free agency, signed with Buffalo, re-signed in Buffalo. These guys, McGovern and Edwards, their next deal will probably be the biggest NFL contract that they ever sign. And what they do in 2025 will define how much money they get. A lot of incentives. And then there's Osiris Torrance, the Bills' starting right guard. Now, he signed through 2026, but he becomes extension eligible after this season. And we've seen the Bills extend a lot of players the year before their contract is up, or year 3 out of their rookie contract. That's Osiris Torrance coming out of this year. So when you look at James Cook, Ray Davis, Osiris Torrance, Connor McGovern, David Edwards, the incentives for them to go out and be the best version of themselves this year and produce and deliver could not be more significant. That's number 4. So number 1 was it was really good last year. Number 2 is continuity. Number 3 is room for growth. Number 4 is massive incentives. And number 5, in terms of reasons I think you should be excited about the Bills' rushing offense in 2025, is that I think the passing game will take a step for a number of reasons. You could talk about all the continuity stuff I got into earlier, but where you don't have continuity in the passing offense, you've added separators in the passing game in Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer. It's meaningful. Those are both players that can also elevate the vertical passing offense, which was objectively bad last year. The Bills were a bottom 5 vertical passing offense last year. Well, it's going to be helpful to have better vertical players than Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer. And then you just general growth, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, now firmly entrenched in his role, Curtis Samuel, healthy as the X factor piece. Like, there's a lot to be excited about with this passing offense. And we talked about this already, that the Bills are not a high-volume passing offense or a high-volume rush offense. And I think here's a consequence of that. The Bills last year were 26th in percentage of runs into light boxes. So very low frequency of runs into light boxes, which are 6 or less defenders in the box. Third highest in percentage of runs into stack boxes, 8 or more. Like, teams kind of knew that the Bills wanted to run the football, and they didn't really have to respect the weapons in the passing game to the extent that you'd like them to, right? With emerging receiving talent and better receiving talent and more need to pay respect to the passing offense, you get better looks to run the football. It's a big deal. Probably the most important thing I've said. And I should have probably led with that, right? I always tell myself, say the most important stuff first. Well, here I am. I didn't do that. But I'm firmly of the belief that this passing offense will take a step, and there's a relationship to the rushing offense that it will help get better looks. And you've heard me talk about it. When you run the football, a lot of times it's just about math. How many blockers do you have versus how many box defenders do they have? Which one has the advantage? And that's a good side to be on. The Bills will be in a position to be on the good side of that more often in 2025 if this passing game takes a step I think it can. Now, one thing that I do want to acknowledge here, as I think there are some frustrations out there for when I say that the Bills are not a high-volume passing offense and they're a high-volume rushing offense, and Josh Allen's a quarterback and you want him to pass for 5,000 yards and have all the great stats. The winning formula in the NFL is still, and always has been, complementary football. What does complementary football mean? It means that all of the components of your football team work together and play off of each other. Offense, defense, special teams. It's not a Sean McDermott special phrase. It's a every great football coach ever special phrase. Complementary football. Controlling the line of scrimmage. Being two-dimensional on offense. That's the winning script. Always has been, always will be in the NFL. The best teams in the NFL are committed to this and have unlocked the best version of their star quarterback. It's the transition that Kansas City's made. Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw for 5,000 yards every season anymore. They play efficient offensive football and play off their defense. Lamar Jackson, we're seeing the best of Lamar Jackson. Why? Because Derrick Henry exists. Think about Jared Goff and the style of play that they have in Detroit, leaning into running the football. Did you watch the Eagles last year and Saquon Barkley and what that meant for Jalen Hurts and the passing offense? How about Justin Herbert last year with the Chargers? Probably the best version of Justin Herbert we've seen. Not the best statistical version of Justin Herbert we've ever seen, but the best version of the player. Well, why? They played good defense. They ran the football. Don't push back when you hear the phrase complementary football, being two-dimensional on offense, controlling the line of scrimmage. That's how you win games in the National Football League. And let me throw another team out there that I think hasn't learned this lesson, and I don't think they will. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. They haven't figured this out. Joe Burrow's putting up crazy numbers. Does it matter? They've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. Why? Because that's all they could do is throw the football. The best teams in the NFL understand complementary football, controlling the line of scrimmage, and being two-dimensional on offense. That's how you get the best version of your quarterback. That's how you get the best version of your team. The examples are obvious. The teams that haven't figured it out, also obvious. It's a big deal. And so don't poo-poo on running the football. It's critical. It's absolutely critical. All right, folks. This is fun. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're excited for this Bills rushing offense in 2025 and beyond. There's plenty of reasons to be excited. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.